Now let's just back to, I think now we start from we come to the chapter, I don't remember the chapter name, 7, yeah. And then on the topic of the Buddhist path, okay, well, Buddhist path. And so I guess we back to this Foundation of Buddhism, chapter 7, the Buddhist path. What is the date today? 14th of September now. No, September. 14th of August.
It is September.
Huh? 14th of September 2017, that's right. Okay, this is on, now we come to page on 165, right? Okay. I think we haven't discussed the role of faith. Have we?
Yeah, we haven't.
We haven't, right? Yeah. All right, now.
You mentioned that you're going to talk about more sutta.
Really?
Yeah, because we talk about the fruits of the ascent.
So what did I say about what kind of sutra I need to?
I have no idea. But you did mention that you're going to be talking another one.
No, I mean those are the. Did I say I want to address that? No.
No, I think you finished it.
Yeah, I finished the sutta, but I was just saying that. Did I no, I'm not sure, so I don't remember.
So I thought it would be something out of the list on page 165.
No, we just back to the role of the faith first. Yeah. Okay. You see, when you give the too much sutra, some people find it scary also. Anyway, I'm just joking. So 165, shall we just start to read that first? The role of faith, why the noble eightfold path. We know that there's something called, since we're talking about a path, so we have to start with, like, when we say the noble eightfold path, right? And yes.
Okay, well, the Noble Eightfold Path may be understood as strictly relevant only to the practice of the Noble Ones. Nevertheless, its basic structure can still be seen as revealing something general about the nature of the spiritual path, the basic dependence of one's actions, items 3 to 5, upon one's beliefs and aspirations, items 1 to 2, and in turn of one's basic emotional state, items 6 to 8, upon one's actions. In fact, here is a certain parallelism between the structure of the Eightfold Path and the chain of dependent arising, where ignorance conditions certain actions, which in turn actions one's birth. The parallelism is clearer when, as often in the early text, we find talk of wrong view, wrong intention, wrong speech, wrong action, wrong livelihood, wrong endeavor, wrong mindfulness, wrong concentration. Moreover, as the positive sequence of dependent arising begins with faith, so the sequence of the Eightfold Path begins with right view. Without some initial trust in the fact that there is a way out of suffering, without some seed of understanding of the nature of suffering and its cessation, we would never begin to look for the path, and we would have no hope of finding it.
Okay. Right, I'm sure you know what is meant by the item 3.5, item 1.2, and item 6.8, right? Anyone? You know?
It's on page 81.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just say that when we say that there's a basic dependent on one actions, that's the item 3 to 5. So that is right speech, right actions, and the right livelihood. Right? Yeah. And then when it comes to upon the belief and aspiration, that is the upon the belief and aspiration, that's item 1 and 2. That's the right view and right intention. Did study translate samma sankappa?
Intention.
No, actually. Here they translate as the right intention. But you know the thing it is because the intention usually I translate as Gethin. So if it is samma sankappa, maybe I like the translation maybe as a right thought, maybe better. Sankappa is more like a thought. But it's okay. So, and then one's basic emotional state is item 6 and 8. What are they?
Effort and concentration.
Yeah, right effort and right concentration and right mindfulness. Yeah, they're 3. Okay. Okay. Now the next one. Yeah.
An ancient formula describes the beginning of the path in the following terms. Tathagata appears in the world. He teaches the Dharma that is beautiful in the beginning, beautiful in the middle, and beautiful in the end. A householder or a householder's son or someone born into some family hears that Dharma, and hearing the Dharma, he gains faith in the Tathagata. Faith or confidence in the Buddha, his teaching, Dharma, and the community, Sangha, of those who have followed and realized the teaching is the starting point of the Buddhist path that is assumed both by the earliest texts and by those brought up in traditional Buddhist cultures today. Yet those of us whose sensibilities have been molded by more recent Western intellectual traditions are often uncomfortable in the presence of religious faith and its devotional and ritual expression. Indeed, 19th and early 20th century enthusiasts have on occasion presented Buddhism as the answer to the modern world's crisis of faith, a religion devoid of belief in God and the saving power of rituals, whose truths are not accepted on the authority of Scripture, but verified by direct experience.
Okay, good. Next one.
Certainly, the Buddha counsels the Kalamas not to
Kalamas, it's Kalamas.
Not to reject or accept things because traditions, scriptures, reasoning, logic, or argument tells them to do so, nor out of respect for some ascetic, but rather because of their own direct knowledge. Yet a preoccupation with Kalama Sutra as a repetition of faith betrays a misunderstanding of the very nature of faith and its devotional and ritual expression in Buddhism. As the Buddhist scholar Edward Kans has commented, this skeptical age dwells anyway far too much on the intellectual side of faith.
Shraddha.
The words we render as faith is
etymologically
akin to Latin cor, the heart, and faith is much more a matter of the heart than the intellect.
Okay.
Kant's comment highlights a distinction that is sometimes made between faith as cognitive and faith as affective. Faith in its cognitive mode is a putative knowledge or awareness that amounts to belief in proposition or statements of which one does not or cannot have direct knowledge. Faith in its affective mode, on the other hand, is a positive emotional response to someone or something one has heard or read. The Buddhist understanding of faith is almost entirely affective. In other words, Buddhist texts understand faith in the Buddha and Dharma not so much as a matter of intellectual assent to a certain proposition about the world in the form of the Buddhist creed, as of a state of trust, confidence, affection, and devotion inspired by the person of the Buddha and his teachings. The confidence that there is indeed a path leading to the cessation of suffering, which has been walked by the Buddha and his followers.
Next one.
The traditional expression of one's faith, one's commitment to the Buddhist path, is the act of going to the three jewels of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha for refuge, realized by the formal recitation of the threefold formula set out at the end of chapter 1. Going for refuge implies the adoption of one of two broad approaches to Buddhist practice: the way of the lay follower, Upasaka, and the way of the ordained monk, bhikshu or non-bhikshuni. In practice, the strength of commitment of both may vary, but generally occur. The monastic way of life represents the ultimate commitment to the religious life, the ultimate expression of faith. But for lay power and monastic alike, the three jewels remain powerful objects for the ritual and devotional expression of their faith.
Okay. Well, next one. Yeah.
The precise form.
No, the precise form, you mean, I say.
Yeah, the precise form the earliest devotions took is unclear, but they centered around the worship of stutas. Thus, the Buddha himself is presented as recommending that faithful monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen visit the four sites where he was born, gain awakening, first taught Dharma, and died. He adds that anyone who dies with a serene heart in the course of making such a pilgrimage will gain a good rebirth. Given the Indian cultural context, worship no doubt took a form not entirely dissimilar from more contemporary Buddhist practice. The making of offerings, especially of flowers, incense, and lamps, and the chanting of verses and formulas, and the basis for the reflection of the quality of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. Early Buddhist art is often described as anarchical, since it avoided representing the Buddha in human form, used instead various symbols and empty seed beneath the tree of awakening of the veil of Dharma. But from the 2nd century CE, the Buddha image increasingly became a focus for such devotions and meditations. Another ancient ritual practice important for the subsequent history of the Buddhism, and which seems to be witnessed already in the earliest writings, is recitation of certain sutras and protective charms.
Raksha. Parita.
The Vinaya describes monks circumambulating a monastery and chanting to protect the Buddha when they believe his life is threatened. One of the oldest such protective chants is the Atiya Sutra, a charm to protect the monk meditating in the forest from unsympathetic demons. Yaksha, alongside the specific charms for the protection of women in childbirth, or the pacifying of dangerous snakes. For example, chanting Buddhist texts and formulas such as the refutes and the precepts in general came to be regarded as effective in protecting one against the danger of the disease and accident. The 2nd or 1st century of BCE, Dhammadipa will not acknowledge the inability of such charms to give us absolute protection from the effects of our bad karma. Nevertheless, defends their efficiency in certain circumstances. The different traditions of the Buddhism in Sri Lanka and Southeast Asia, in East Asia, and in Tibet have all developed their own distinctive forms of devotional and protective ritual, yet those derive from a common ancient ancestry.
Okay, all right. I think we have one paragraph to go, and then we can have a little discussion. So, yeah.
The Buddha of the early text may be critical then of certain kinds of Brahmanical rituals, especially those involving the sacrifice of animals. He may also deny that faith and rituals can of themselves bring about the final cessation of suffering. But there is no real evidence in the early text to suggest a negative attitude to faith and its ritual and devotional expression. Indeed, even when the Buddha apparently approving of worship at non-Buddhist shrines, faith and the activities which express that faith are, in fact, seen as performing a spiritually crucial function. They soothe and settle the mind, thereby arousing the confidence to continue the practice of the path. Moreover, the mind is quietly confident and trustful of the power of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is its own protection. Two ancient images for faith are worth noting. Faith is compared to a gem, which when thrown into a stream that has just been stirred up by the passing of an emperor's army, immediately causes the sand, silt, and mud to settle. Or, if one were standing at the bank of a river in spate, unable to judge whether it might be possible to leap over it, and someone should come along and indeed jump across, then there might arise the confidence that it is indeed possible to cross the torrent. So faith has two characteristics. It causes the mind to become settled and composed, and it inspires it with a confidence to leap forward. In sum, devotional and ritual practice constitute a preliminary meditation practice, settling and composing the mind in preparation for the higher stages of Buddhist meditative practice.
Okay, good. Okay, I guess we can have a little discussion or comment on this, because even though we talk about the Buddhist path, I mean that one, and then we, in the first part, the previous chapter, I guess there's a mention about what the Arya path mean, or the noble path, and also what else? The path is understood as the graduate path, mean go step by steps, and also if you look at the whole chapters, the whole books, and this chapter is certainly it's directly to do with if we are taking in respect of Four Noble Truths, the truth of the suffering, we mentioned that before, and then the truth for the original suffering, that we also have addressed some of them, and then there's the truth for the ceasing of the suffering, that means the Nirodha, mean the cessation, so mean Nibbana, no self. We have discussed that also before. Now we talk the fourth truth, that is the truth, the truth of the path leading to the cessation. So, and in abstract, usually we understand the path mean the path of the Noble Eightfold Path, right? They comprises of the 8 items. So I think that everybody have to remember the first item is it's believed that if that's the right path, that always comprises these 8 kind of items there. One item is the right view. That means you have the right view. And the second is the right, you could say right intention, but I like to translate right thought, because it's more like a component of your understanding of thing. So sankappa, it's actually is direct, anyway, it's it has to work with intentionally understand certain thing. So it's and that's what we call the right, or you could say right intention. And then the third one, you have the verbal part, right? Right speech, and then what is that? Right livelihood, and then right action and right livelihood. What is a right livelihood?
You should choose an occupation not appropriate, so you don't kill all the time. Yeah, the way that you live, basically, the way that you're not occupation only. It's but
Lifestyle.
Yeah, the right lifestyle. That's a good way. Yeah, and then you will also have 2 more. What are they? Oh, 3 more. Sorry, Noble Eightfold Path. It become Noble Noble Sevenfold Path. Sorry, 3 more. And what is that? It's very important. That is direct to do with our action or attitude. I mean, right? It's the right mindfulness, right? And the right concentration, and one more. Yeah, and then right effort. Yeah. So that's a part. Now, but then it looks like if we want to include, because since the faith. Now, this is back to, we have to discuss about the faith, because it's always mentioned that when you're really into your practice, the Buddhist path, that you must establish the faith, you must establish the virtue, you know, and then of course then your generosity and then your understanding. This is a four very kind of like a four pillar of someone who really, you know, begin with their practices. So, and now here he actually, the book also mentioned there what's the faith that stands in the Noble Eightfold Path. Okay. Anyway, okay, let's see. Do you have any comment on what you have just read, or what comes in your thought when you want to share with the people? Yeah.
Two thoughts about page 167, Edward Con's. I'm not entirely certain about his comment when he says that we have put far too much on the intellectual side of faith. Of course, depending on his definition of faith, in the first place, is there an intellectual side of faith? And question two, if there is an intellectual side of faith, exactly what that is?
I'm not sure. Of course, I never know exactly, but I think my understanding when he mentioned the intellectual faith to my term is it's say that you don't really believe in anything about anything that besides just what you think that I like Buddhism just because the Buddha has a wisdom and whatever he says is really makes sense.
Okay, that's called a faith. Then.
Yeah, you still have the faith to the Buddha in that way because every rationally, it's everything what he said, it makes sense. It's intellectual faith, I guess. But that's what he would disagree, actually. He do not think that kind of faith really can motivate people so strong as the real standard of faith. I give you one example. This is how I don't mean he maybe this is how I understand. For example, like when once I was in a center, actually I brought my mother to friend there. That was when I was in Sri Lanka to do a meditation. So. And there was one of the German guy, and he been there at that time. He was almost 50 or 40 something, at the end of 40. So because I was just almost at the end of my 30 years old, so I don't remember exactly. But I just know that he stayed there for 2 years already. So he's complete intellectual faith, you could say. Why? For example, he never worshipped the Buddha. When the people, like in Sri Lankan tradition, when they come in there, they saw the Buddha, they start to worship. He never did that. He doesn't want to do that at all. He never do anything, but he would now when he never do anything like what we think about like the so-called here he used the word effective faith. Nothing to do with that. So the thing is only he loved the plant. He helped the gardening. So every morning he do like to cut some flower and what just put on the Buddha. He might be close a palm. That's it. Stand in a close a palm, and he just do. He never want to worship. And I remember he always had to explain to people like us as a guest, as especially a monk. That time I brought my some nuns there with me. So anyway, he even told me that he doesn't want to worship. I didn't ask him why you didn't worship because this is none of my business. For me, it's fine. But traditionally people will find very strange. You stay there for 2 years already, and you live in the places, even though it's meditation, but then there's a Buddha there. Every people they do the worship and they do their sitting. He doesn't do that, And he said he doesn't worship in idol. He doesn't worship in anything that doesn't mean it. But he have the confidence in the Buddhist Dharma, in the Buddha's Dharma. But now let me say that very interesting. One thing happened. There was actually he was the one who told me that. He said, I saw suddenly they become busy that night. Before night, then I said, why everyone is busy? He said, it's a tradition for them in that meditation center. Every full moon day, they have to prepare the thing because they expect people are going to sit for the whole night until next day. So that means the whole night, the full moon night, right? Until the next day. So because usually, let's say that we start the breakfast maybe by 7, but that day they have to, because if they have to meditate until next day. And also traditionally, we know that, generally, supposedly when you do meditation, you have to wake up by 3:30, something like that. So that's why people, even though they cannot make the breakfast for you for 3:30, at least means something to drink, or like what we call the Kilanabasa, the medicine. So I identify. Anyway, so they are busy to do that a little bit. So, but then I asked them, so what do you think? Anyone that been really sitting for the next day? But at least he told me when he was there, no one did that. But of course, everybody tried. So that's the reason why we did that in the early morning. We did the whole sitting from that night. I think it started from 6 o'clock, maybe, something like that. I think it's 6, maybe 5 or 6, I can't remember exactly, to the next day, 6, that means 12 hours, they sit there, something like that. So now, then he started to have the faith. When he saw that somebody can do that, sit there not moving, and we are saying that sitting there is not like, oh, I want to do a whole night there. You don't move, you really sit there, not moving. And he was observing that because he was really like, he's thinking there's a really big break, okay. When he saw that, then suddenly he put the flower on the sandal, okay. So basically, on the sandal, he was really amazed by, don't say that whether we did meditation well, but he definitely amazed by, really somebody can sit for 12 hours not moving until the next day, okay. Now, the funny part is like that. From that onward, he worshipped the Buddha. And he told me, he said, thank you for you. Thank you, me. Actually, that was the time I with my mom were doing competition, kind of like. We said, why don't we, if nobody did that, why don't we do it? Because we thought sit the whole night is nothing big deal. Really, when I was younger, I think it's nothing big deal. It's very easy just to sit 12 hours and 13 hours, 4 hours. So what? So I just told my mom, why don't we just sit? My mom said, really? Yes, so that's why we were sitting together. We sit the whole night, not moving, really don't move. And then, that's how the faith comes. That one is nothing to do with intellectual at all. Affective, that's what I mean by that. He worshipped the Buddha, and he told me that now. So actually, he really, in the front of people, he really do the worshiping, and also, and he told me, before I left, he told me that, thank you for you, that, because he really, this is not, definitely, it's nothing to do with the intellectual, how much you read or what, you know.
Okay. So it would be understanding versus acceptance, kind of.
I mean, of course, this is a big discussion too, because that's actually, yeah, it's understanding. You mean understanding versus what?
Just acceptance of what is true.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so. I mean, that is actually it serves as a really very powerful kind of what to call trust there, right? Yeah. It started like a powerful trust there. Just like he said, leap over that some other place that, let's say if the people really can, you know, see, I can jump over that, the trust is there. So, and then you just forget every kind of intellectual kind of understanding that it's almost impossible or what, so you just leaping. Okay, maybe die, I don't know, but yeah, so, yeah.
So
and
like, you mentioned about the river, I was like thinking, the last paragraph is saying that if you have trust and you just jump and you cross the river, you can pass.
Yeah.
But if you really jump and but you trust the universe, you're gonna die and you will die too, and you will feel like, yes, I die because I need to die. Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, guess that's a good part of it and bad part of it. That's the reason, that's why I say this actually is a big subject to talk about. Because the Buddhism, the word sraddha and saddha, it's not about a word. We don't have another word go with it. It is called, something I can't remember in the Sanskrit. I have to think about. It means more like the blessing. I mean, if you are later on, the Buddhism later on, like Mahayana Buddhism actually has one of the very unique feature is to talk about the blessing. That is, I had to think about the term, prasada. Not prasada. I can't remember the surname. Anyway, it's really often mentioned. It's the that's a problem. Even when you read the Chinese text, they have a different way of translate it. But actually, it means kind of like in Indian religion is very important. You definitely must have a different kind of some people translate it as a faith. It's a different term in Sanskrit or in Pali. So that term it's refer kind of like you really have a full holy trust to the God. Either let's say even in Mahayana later on I have the kind of emphasis like holy trust on the Bodhisattva and whatever You could die for it, you know. And they think that is a kind of really higher power, very powerful kind of believing or a powerful virtue, something like that. By doing so, you have this very powerful virtue. But that definitely not from early Buddhism, and in general Buddhism, I would say, not only early. In general Buddhism, the word faith, it's understood. That's why, that's the reason why we discuss here. So, and we have the faith, but then, even though a lot of Westerners have a way of thinking that Westerners have an intellectual only per se, but that certainly in down to earth, one other way to understand it certainly is not enough. I also agree with that. You have kind of like, you know, let's say, I would just say one simple example, like you're sitting doing meditation. If you're thinking that, you know, only intellectual way of thinking, okay, today I meditate, I want to do for 10 hours of meditation, but now only just when you open the eye, just only 6 hours, for example. You have 4 hours to go, and you will start to think intellectually mean, oh, because this is not enough, that is not enough, this is more like intellectually in the Dharma, you know. But sometimes that's not really helpful. But it's more helpful you were thinking, why the Buddha could sit for so many days? Why couldn't I? So, and then you start to think, then I really have to believe the Buddha, somebody can do that way. And the Buddha can do that way, or somebody you saw can do that. Then that kind of is nothing to do with the intellectual. It's not.
Yeah, it's aspiration.
Yeah, that is the aspiration that really makes you to, you know, you break through that. That's what it's, you need that kind. In Buddhism, actually, when we say the faith also, I think he wanted to say, do not just take it at one side. But maybe the later side actually is sometimes seemingly more effective than the other side of it, you know. But here we are not discussing that there's no. Sometimes when you have this kind of faith, certain Buddhism do not believe in blind faith. But we are not here to discuss. I mean, actually, that's why I say this is a big topic. Even some people doing it, I think. Anyway, lots of papers about that, how Buddhism really understands the faith. Okay. Anyway. All right, any other comments, questions? But this is important. You do find that in early Buddhism, the approach of the faith is certainly a little different from the Mahayana Buddhism. Yeah.
It says here that the Buddha himself is commenting that the monk and lay people should visit the 4 sites.
Yeah.
Can you?
That because actually that is the quotation from the sutra called the Mahaparinibbana Sutta, I mean the Sutta of the Buddha, the last day of the Buddha, right? So we know that the Buddha, I don't know whether you want to, okay, just say a little detail. Actually, you know that the Buddha somehow knew that maybe he knew that his body is going to like degenerating. So, and he thought, you know, maybe that's the time he should pass away. However, out of the compassion of the others, not for himself wanted to stay for a long time. So, traditionally, he have to ask his attendant. When I say traditionally, I mean because, you know, for example, like somebody want to do something, he thought, okay, I have done my job, so I should go now. However, if there any person just beside him, especially his attendants, so request that you shouldn't go because even though you finish this job, actually there are still people need you. If you could stay long, you maybe could help them, you know, some other. So out of the compassion, only for that kind of law, if somebody requests him to stay, then he'll stay. So he actually hint to the Ananda. According to the story, the Ananda was not, he hinted to Ananda that actually Buddha has such a power. If he want to stay, he could stay there for long. But he didn't. Ananda didn't respond. Ananda didn't say yes and no. And didn't say, why don't you stay? And people need you. No, he didn't say that. So of course the story side is because the demon and blind Ananda's eyes, or you know, Ananda didn't hear their words. Actually, the one funny part is which people don't talk about is after that, then the Buddha knew that he had to make the decision. No, before he made the decision also, the demon also came to talk to the Buddha. Said, remember, when you before you attend enlightenment, you said you are going to, you attend enlightenment because you want to help the people and make people understand the teachings, and let people have to attend the fruit, right? The sainthood, attend the sainthood. Now you have done your job. Now it's the time for you to go. That's the reason why he was pursued by the demon many times. This is why he had to ask the Ananda, saying that that Buddha actually have the power, even when they say that Ananda didn't reply that. So that's why after he knew that, that's the time. So that's why he made a determination that he's going to live for 3 months. In 3 months' time, he's going. So he has to left. Anyway, so before he's leaving, and then suddenly when he make the decision, the whole earth was shaking, like earthquake. I don't know. And that's why Ananda knew that this is nothing. It will not happen. Anyway, this is shaking kind of earth has become a really mystical. Even in the Buddhist circle, it's become a very mystical kind of concept. So anyway, that shake after the word shaking, the earth was shaken, and then the Ananda asked the Buddha why the earth was shaking. He knew this is not a normal thing happened. That's why the Buddha answered him that because I have made the mind already that I'm not going to live for 3 months. On between, then the Ananda asked him also. So then if you leave, how can we see you? So that's why then you can visit my 4 places. That's why in the Theravada tradition, in the Theravada, this is not only just Theravada. If you read the sutra, you will find in Chinese and everywhere the same. That then the Buddha, you can visit my 4 places. That's the way in order to to worship me, to understand me. That is the place of his birth, right? And the place of his enlightenment, and then the place of his. Now the first, the place of his first sermon, and then the place of his, attending the last, what we call the Parinibbana. So the 4 places, yeah. But I mean, like almost all religion, I guess they have this kind of thing. Like they ask them to, you could look back where But since Buddhism have a different emphasis, so it's emphasis on the place he was born, emphasis on the place he was attending enlightenment, the place is giving the first sermon. Without the first sermon, there's no teachings going on, right? And then the place that he attends is passing away, which is also one of the things that everybody had to face. Especially his passing away is the best of the passing away, because he would no more to reborn again. So that is actually one thing to be celebrated, Yeah, the 4 places. Okay. Have any of you been there? Except me. I don't think he's been there. He didn't go all. No, I've been there 3 times. I think. I guess. Yeah. Huh?
My dad actually went.
Your dad was there. Okay.
Can that be arranged sometime in the future?
I don't know. I think so, I don't know. I knew that some people sometimes they take people go over there, but I guess I don't know. So we'll see. Anyway, we don't have to discuss that here now. Any other comment? Comment? No. Okay. If no comments, so we can go to the good conduct. Okay. So after we understand certain aspect of the faith, in terms of the path, then we come to the good conduct. Okay. Who is left out? Oh, you. I think you are the next one. Do you want to read?
Yeah, sure.
The good conduct. Yeah.
Okay. I have already briefly discussed generosity and good conduct as basis of auspicious action or merit. Punya or Kenya above. See PP 101-2. In the present context, I wish to comment further on the Buddhist understanding of good conduct or virtue. It is useful here to make a distinction between good conduct as the refraining from various deeds that are considered unwholesome and harmful to both oneself and others, and the perfected conduct of the one who is awakened, such as Buddha or Arhat. The ordinary unawakened person sometimes acts in a wholesome, sometimes in an unwholesome manner. The goal of the Buddhist path is to eradicate the unwholesomeness motivations that cause harmful behavior. To achieve this, the mind needs to be trained. Part of the training involves the undertaking of various precepts, literally principles or bases of training, in order to try to restrain the mind and draw it back from the grosser kinds of unwholesome behavior. For one who is awakened, such as precepts are redundant, not because he or she is now permitted these kinds of behavior, but because the conduct is now perfected and the temptation, or rather the motivation at the root of such kinds of behavior has gone. That is, the ordinary unawakened person's actions are sometimes motivated by greed, aversion, and delusion, and sometimes by non-attachment, friendliness, and wisdom. Since a Buddha or Arhat has completely eradicated from the defilements and any latent tendency to attachment, aversion, or delusion, he or she acts exclusively from non-attachment, friendliness, and wisdom.
Okay, thank you. Next one.
As part of the practice of the path, it is traditional for the lay followers to take on 5 precepts to refrain from harming living creatures, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, false speech, intoxicant that cause heedlessly. On occasion, for limited periods, the committed lay follower may take on 8 precepts, while the monk's good conduct is founded on 10 basic precepts, elaborated in terms of the 200 plus rules of the Pratimakasha. Much of this elaboration in principle involve distinguishing between serious and less serious breaches of the 10 precepts. The 5 precepts.
Okay, I think you want to read that? Okay. You want to read it, or let's have to read? Okay.
Let me see. Oh, that's a very big one.
Yeah, then she can read it. Okay. Okay, she can read it. That's okay. Yeah.
The 5 precepts are, for the most part, self-explanatory, although there's a certain subtlety in their definition. The first precept is usually taken as specifically referring to killing, although a wider definition is not excluded. The second refers in simple terms to stealing, although once more the wider definition begs the question of what precisely constitutes what is not given. The third precept is traditionally taken as referring to sexual intercourse with partners who are prohibited, in other words, adultery. But again, the precept raises the question of what exactly constitutes sexual misconduct, and even since a literal translation of the expression might be misconduct with regard to sensual desire, questions about more general sensual indulgence. The fourth precept refers specifically to lying, but the question of right speech is elaborated upon in Buddhist texts see below. The fifth precept also has wider implications. Heedlessness is interpreted by Theravada commentators as the absence of mindfulness.
And important. Smriti.
Smriti,
yeah.
Sati. An important psychological quality. It is not the taking of alcohol or other drugs as such that is problematic, but the state of mind that is that it generally induces. A lack of mental clarity with an increased tendency to break the other precepts. The fifth precept also highlights once more that what we have to do with here are principles of training, and what is of paramount importance in the Buddhist conception of spiritual training is mental clarity. This helps to create the conditions that conduce to seeing the ways things truly are. The additional precepts in the list of 8 and 10 are similarly principles of training seen as helpful in the cultivation of the path, rather than prohibitions against intrinsically unwholesome ways of conduct.
All right, so okay, next one. Is it back to you again?
Yep.
Back to you again, yeah.
The kinds of behavior that the 5 precepts are intended to prevent one from committing are outlined by the list of 10 courses of unwholesome action: harming living creatures, taking what is not given, sexual misconduct, false speech, divisive speech, harsh speech, frivolous speech, covetousness, anger, wrong view, see above. In these 10 actions, 3 of body, 4 of speech, and 3 of thought. We find speech further elaborated, while the particular emphasis on actions of thought and the mind draws attention once again to the Buddhist focus on karma as essentially a matter of the mind and intention. What is important is one's state of mind in a moment of intense anger and hatred, even if it does not lead to actual physical violence or verbal abuse, nonetheless constitute a real deed or karma.
Okay, next one, the 5 precepts. Precepts, yeah.
Precepts and the 10 courses of action essentially define for us right speech and the action of the Eightfold Path. What of right livelihood, the third item of the Eightfold Path that bears on good conduct? This is basically understood as making one's living by means that avoid activity infringing the 5 precepts. Such occupations as that of the soldier, butcher, or trader in alcohol are therefore called into question. Yet in approaching questions of good conduct and the precepts, Buddhist tradition has generally shown us attitude of practicality and flexibility. In order to illustrate this, it is worth briefly considering the question of vegetarianism in the light of the first precept.
Okay, all right, and next one.
The ethical ideal that underlies the precepts is considered to be rather exalted, such that only someone very advanced on the path, a stream attainer, or even a Buddha or Arhat, could really live up to it. Indeed, good conduct is ultimately understood in Buddhist thought, not in terms of adherence to external rules, but as the expression of the perfected motivations of non-attachment, friendliness, and wisdom. Thus, the Arhat is described as simply being incapable of intentionally acting in a manner that is not in accordance with the precepts and the 10 courses of wholesome action. In other words, ordinary beings cannot hope to keep the precepts perfectly. Rather, they abide by the precepts as rules of training in order to curb the grosser forms of bad conduct. At a deeper level, there is also perhaps a sense in which no one, not even a Buddha, can hope to live in the world and cause absolutely no harm to any living being. That is, it is almost impossible to isolate and disassociate oneself absolutely from activities that indirectly cause harm to living creatures. That this is so is an aspect of the deepest level of the first noble truth. The word samsara is by its very nature an imperfect place, a place where suffering is always lurking in one form or another. The question of acting ethically then becomes one of where to draw the line.
Okay, right. Any comments from here at least so far? Oh, no question? No any comment?
I have a question about the last paragraph. It's mentioned that not even Buddha can absolutely know how many people, right, or living beings. When I was in Taiwan and doing the
repentance, I don't know what that is. The ritual, yeah, anyway, a kind of ritual,
right.
yeah.
And my question is, when I was in Taiwan and attend the ceremony, the Lianghuang Fa Hui, and people, I mean, I heard people saying that Arahant and then Buddha, they don't harm any living being, and because they say it's Arahant, they have to walk, right? But if you walk on the ground, you have to. I mean, you must. Kill maybe some very tiny creatures. But they talk about the Buddha and the Arahant. They walk.
They levitate.
Right, kind of 1 inch or 3 inch on the ground. So I'm kind of curious.
You're curious about what?
Is that true?
No, but it's actually either back to the historically, it's in historically record of certain school. I cannot remember the school name. One of the school believed that certainly not in the. No, actually, it's not in the Mahasangika school, Dazhongbu, that somebody think that later on that because of the school Mahasangika so influenced the horizon of the Mahayana. Even that school do not believe that. Some other school, I think, they believe that Buddha actually, that the Buddha, when they walk in it, he like levitated 2 or 3 inches above the land. I don't know that. That's even still some school believe that, but definitely not in other schools.
You mean school of Jintu?
No, the school, okay. That's still, Jintu is very late. We're talking about after the Buddha passed away, few hundred years, then you have different school like Saravastivada school, Pugalavada school, Samidhiya school, and other school. And those, or you could, nowadays you can term that as the Sravakayana school, the Hinayana school. So, and then some they even believe, one school that believe, maybe Mahasangika, I'm probably wrong, I cannot remember exactly now. I don't know, I had to forget that. Yeah. So it's just one of the schools somehow believe that there's the Buddha is that way. But that not from the Saravastivada and Theravada school, no. Yeah, they don't have that kind of belief, yeah.
Shouldn't it be more about intentionality of killing?
Yeah, I mean, this is another thing that we need to understand. Here, when he say the word also, he used the term, let me just say, he said that it is almost impossible to isolate and dissociate oneself absolutely from activities that indirectly cause harm to living creature. He didn't say it directly, it's indirectly. I mean, you know, other thing is also very important, like the verse, the Dhammadipa, the first thing about it is believing that why we have the first verse of the Dhammadipa because of something incident happened, especially was one of the Arahant when he's doing his walking meditation, he has stepped over on many creatures and died. And then the people accuse that actually that Arahant, how can be Arahant killing a lot of creatures? So, and then in other words, he committed this karma, bad karma, the unwholesome action. So, but then the Buddha explained that he actually, that creature was dying, he killed that creature because those insects and so forth unintentionally because he didn't know there was thing over there. So, and he stepped over and then creatures died. So, and of course, especially that blind person is blind, he couldn't see that also. So that's according to the Buddhist understanding, the karma, so that he didn't actually directly commit the karma. So by that explanation, even if the Buddha might be walk on the land, so that's why he used directly. He didn't say. So there is, in a way, if indirectly can take it at such a way like, you know, you step over but unawareing, the living thing just right there, and you step away and you kill that. That is called indirectly. So okay.
I think it's maybe something like when you drink water, some germs, and those germs are you actually killing.
That's also indirectly.
Also, when building the house, actually have to cut the trees and animals lost their habitats.
Yeah, so in Jainism, when they walk, they have to use a brush to brush the ground so you don't step on anything, and you cannot drink hot water. Is it? I think they can only drink cold water or hot water.
Yeah, they cannot drink hot water because they don't want to kill any germ. That's why they also must have put this kind of weight over here, and so that they do not breathe the germ. In order to kill a little insect. Is somebody out? Yeah, please. Yeah, come in. Sure. Yeah, hi, nice to see you. Yes. So and those are the other case. Yeah, we can have a little discussion about that too, because it's actually one of the important. I mean, sometimes some Buddhists, some people who study Buddhism, they get confused with the streak, so-called the streak. I don't know what. I forgot the term already. There's a term in some people who believe in karma in the strict sense. No, definitely not from a Buddhist perspective. Okay. Yeah. We can talk there. So shall we have a break later? Since and you just arrived, we can have 5 minutes break and then we come back. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. We can discuss that after 5 minutes. Yeah.